Well, good morning. Lockup is a vital part and vital stage of a home, and generally, what occurs is as soon as the plasterboard is finished, um, the front and back door go on, and a few other things like that. Um, and then there's very expensive materials that go into the house, such as tiling and sinks and basins and all those sorts of things. And so we want to actually lock the house so that the those fittings don't end up in somebody else's house. All right, so if we look up here, first of all, over here, lock up below other trades, and we actually have the plasterboard insulation, which we've already completed a video. And then underneath that is now going to be um, a section on waterproofing. And waterproofing is a critical factor in any home, especially double-story homes. So uh, it's still an issue, even if it's a single story, but it's one of the biggest issues in homes. And I will talk about that. I'll actually, first of all, we are going to be going through um, the residential guide. We're going to open that up. We're also going to have a look at this resource, and we're also going to have a look at this resource here, which Terry Dolman sent me, and is quite a top-notch record. So first of all, we're going to go to here, and the first thing will happen, like everything, it'll open up the document, and should be pretty tickety-boo. And so there we have it. So the Gyprock 547 Residential Installation Guide. Okay, and you can see it there. Now this has a lot of information in it. We won't be covering everything that goes from one end to the other because of its huge size. But the area that I want to touch on first of all is just reiterate about the fact how we fix plasterboard, and then we will go down to the other sort of areas that are really critical. So I'm just going to scroll down, and you can see a few pictures of plasterboard being fixed up, and nowadays these lovely tools. When I first started in the industry, plasterboard first came out, and prior to that, all of the carpenters used to put up the solid plaster on the wall, which was fibrous plaster. They'd use long, 50 mil long galvanized nails with a relatively large head, and you'd nail them up at 6 inches apart. And so all the carpenters started to do that to the plasterboard. And what actually happened was the plasterboard would split down the center as if it had a grain. It doesn't. And these screws do a great job. They are much better than the vibration of working with plasterboard. Now notice up here, it doesn't join on a sheet. It actually goes past, and then they have to back block that. And these are just lovely pictures about plasterboard. And okay, like anything, you've got your index through here, stud framing, plasterboard installation. Um, you've got your applications, reference material, handling and storage, cutting and fixing, components, and the main thing that I am really interested in is shower, bath, basin area, okay, because this is critical to make sure under this wet area lining systems that all of this is actually taken care of. So I'll probably lob into here after I've actually had a look at the plasterboard insulation, and I don't know if I can actually get that to link. No, so I'll have to actually go 20 pages. Now down here are all the different applications, the different types of super seal, which is actually there's a fiberglass insert in that material to make it not sag. Aqua check is basically wet area board, and you've got all sound check, standard plasterboard, all the different ones. And so you have access to a wealth of information, and you owe it to yourself um, even if you're just doing small projects, levels of finish, okay, really important. How do we get just a proper finish? And it is crucial. Okay, there's the actual level of finish checklist. And so we keep on going through. This is one of the don'ts of any building. Never put a window right alongside of a wall, because the light will refract along that join and you'll see everything. Same with fluoro lights over the top of a ceiling. You will see every join, and that's something. So notice this. They actually put it right at this point in the center of the lights, and because the light's so bright, no one sees it. Okay. Same inspection of plasterboard. So this is very real. You actually have people that walk around the place, and I had one client run around. I called him Florence Nightingale because he had a bedside lantern pushing up against the ceiling. Oh, I can see a mark. I can see. And so this is the actual rule. Okay, so for a ceiling, 1500 away from a wall, 1500 away from the ceiling, and generally you will not see very much at all. All right, correct fastener driving, incorrect. These are all critical. Okay, and this is uh, one of the problems that we actually have when we're working with plasterboard. So these are all the fixings, tells you how many screws. This is all how it's supposed to be fitted, which is really good. And it'd be great if right down the bottom we've got 18. Okay. Bradford Gold, we've actually got a site for that we'll be going to. And this is a list of all the products. Far too much, a little bit of a picture of a couple of plasterboard fixers actually putting their plasterboard into position, and basically they've got their screw gun here and off they go. Their hammers are not like carpenter's hammers. They actually even have like a little axe on the end, so if they have to chop out a bit of plasterboard to fit something, they will. So stud framing, and this is a bit that you've already seen in another video, but this is crucial. Okay, usually plasterboard is fitted across the joists, and imagine studs behind that vertical across the studs. Okay, now if you're looking at demountable partitioning, it's the opposite. They often do things vertically. This is with steel stud, and you'll notice that there's never a join here, or if there is, and it's as ugly as anything. Generally on a transportable, you might have that, because the simple fact is they chuck a whole house on top of a semi and flog off down the road at 50, 60 k's an hour, and the road, there's movement and everything like that. Chances are you might get a split here. But these are the keys that we actually need to look at, and you can see through just some details of all the different types of plasterboard. Now I'm just going to scroll down because I haven't got the index working. Direct stick, which is interesting. Curved, all right, says that the depth, and this is really difficult to do and to do well. All right, lovely curved stair, and plasterboards following that curve. All right. Notice you actually using 6.5 mil plasterboard so that it actually curves. And so you have to do two layers, and this is all, both of them are glued together, holding them on so that you've got movement like so. But nevertheless, now construction details. All right, interestingly enough, right? I do not see this very often in bathrooms, but there is actually a requirement for a construction gap between the stud work and also between the wet area, a 6 mil gap. Now you imagine all these beautiful tiles, and then you put a silicon or a chalk and colors control joint like this fellow here. And so these are some of the details. Wet area back blocking, which is something that the plasterboard guys need to know. Fire rating. And then finally we get to wet area lining systems. So wet area walls in showers. Okay, and in the closed shower, the walls up to 1800 mil high to be water resistant. So that means they need to actually be tanked. And we'll have a look at some lovely pictures of all the different types of panking. Now, can you understand why I made the statement that your wet area bathroom ensuite is the most expensive room in the house? You've got glass, you've got toilets, you've got baths. It is just really, really something that is quite expensive. So let's first of all have a look at a preformed shower base, figure 36. Okay, so this is a second story structure. You've got floor joists, you've got structural sheet flooring, and then on top of that, you've got a mortar bed, and you actually have a preformed shower base. Now, in our build, we have two of those for both showers. And so have a look at the weatherproofing detail. First of all, we need to have a noggin around here, which is probably approximately 150 mil to the center. See that there, right? Floor level. And fixing here. And then you've got a 6 mil flexible sealant between the shower base and the tile, and also between the plasterboard or the wet area board, okay, Gyprock Aquacheck or Villa board, and that seals and stops any water coming up through here into here and then starting to eat away at timber. Now, I have seen pictures of a job. It was a housing trust place, and this was not done. And the bottom of the stud for up to about 150 high would just ate away over 15, 20 years. That the shower was there, and my friend had the job, says fix wall. And so he goes there, and the owner just pushed on the wall, or the tenant, and basically the whole wall moved because it had eaten away the bottom of the stud and a fair bit of the bottom plate. All right, concrete slab, similar detail, even though you've got concrete here. Notice, okay, you've got a barrier. This is waterproofing. So the waterproofing goes up here, and the key area, if you have a home inspection, the inspector will usually use a probe near the shower area, and he will actually jab the probe into the floor and the carpet, and any water that comes through there will just work its way through usually, and you get a musty smell. So you got your mortar bed, you've got the same detail, you've got this 6 mil gap, and there's the membrane. There it is there, right through. Okay, and that membrane's meant to resist any water coming through. Okay, a couple of details, very basic, ordinary showers. Waterproof membrane to be 18 100 millimeter above the floor or the finished shower floor. So that means after the tiles. So once the tiles are put in, 1800 above that. And it goes straight through, goes past the actual hob. So this is what's called a hob, and that is meant to encapsulate all of the water. So you can imagine if this drain blocks and you get 100 mil of water in here, it will then finally spill over. Or you've got a preformed shower base. Usually, nowadays, we actually use a, a drain system that actually has a double layer underneath so that any water that gets onto the floor actually comes in. It's called a puddle flange. And so that's worth having a look at also. Let's have a look. Okay, here's our mortar bed. Okay, here's our flexible sealant, and then somewhere along here we should have an arrow that points to this bond breaker. All right, and it's a little bit. It's designed to actually take the pressure off of the material. Okay, here's another one. So there's the tanking, and then over here you've actually got, all right, this key area that covers each one. So you've got a class 3 membrane applied to the face of the wall lining and the floor. And so it goes all the way through there. Now, the idea is every time someone gets into a shower, especially on a timber floor, there will be some movement. And so in my lifetime, I have seen um, a couple of grip core, which was a brand that actually was waterproofing. I've seen fiberglass. I've seen PVC, uh, what's called tanking, which is basically like Coke bottle plastic reformed into 100 by 50, and we used to glue it down. Doesn't work. So there are lots of failures in wet areas. And I did have a document and a set of them. I had 15 or 16 of them and used to teach the carpenters that because they're the guys who actually put a lot of this prefab work in before the plasterboard's finished. Now, this bead breaker or bond breaker is basically so when we step on it, this will actually compress in size and allow the movement. And now, if I had this going right along and dead square and then going straight up there, then the chances are it will break at this point. All right, and you can't afford to have that. All right, a little bit more waterproofing and you can see that they've tanked over the top of the hob, and then you've got your puddle flange in here, and then you've got this it says optional continuation of perimeter flashing. You'd have to be a nut not to do it. Okay, in the corner, you also have a flashing that goes in here. It screws to both sides. It's designed to take any of the movement. And so here we can see additional noggings for fitting. And here's a closer detail of a hob and the sort of expectation that this should be 75 mil up and over, and then you tile over the top of that. And if you do that correctly, you'll be well on the way. Okay, a couple of more details through here. Bath area. Now there's a rule of a membrane to be 1500 projected from the shower distance. So from here, you measure 1500 and do an arc. So the Bang 'em Up Building Company, who never do any more than they absolutely have to, right, do this. The professional builders, such as my brother-in-law, every wet area was the whole floor was done because it's just dumb doing bare minimum. And there are some people in life you meet, and that's exactly what their characters are, bare minimum. They will only do just enough. All right. And I get it. A builder has to build a house for the most cost effective price that he possibly can. And the profit that he makes, that's his living. But the other factor of it is they've got to cover it for 10 years. So if they had a leak out here, it's going to go straight in, and that's a big problem. So you can see the radius there. So this means that this has to go really longer. 1500 might be an 1800 long bath, I suppose. And then you can see we used to actually make little stud walls underneath here. But nowadays they actually use aerated foam Hebel as a means of actually fitting that in, and it's waterproof and it's a lot better job. So notice that this is all worked out so that it's actually covered. All right, shower screen, same detail. All right. I always show the students this lovely detail here and this detail here. And then I ask them, I said, has anyone seen a bathroom that actually has this detail? And not one. So in 16 years, and probably 14 of those, I was actually teaching all this stuff. And never once did anyone say to me, oh, yeah, I see that all the time. No, it looks crap. And so therefore, no builder is going to want to do that. Now they might do something like that, but even that I'm yet to see. Generally, the two tiles touch. All right. And so you've got your sealant, you've got your curve, I get that. And then you've got, okay, your flashing angle in behind here. This is a problem because then this sheet goes back at an angle, and so that's not square. So when the tiler has to do this work, this creates a little bit of an issue. So I get it. Class 3, Class 2, and then this one says Class 1, 2, or 3. All right, installation layout for a bath without a shower. So it covers every other section. The reason I'm showing you this, the maximum amount that you can cut out of a timber stud is 25 mil, and the only place that you can do 25 mil is here. Okay, and the reason for that is so that the lip of the bath is behind the line of the cladding, and the cladding comes down to within 6 mil of the top of the bath, and then that is jointed. And the idea is that actually locks away any of the opportunity of um, getting water ingress into the stud work, as I explained earlier. So you can imagine that when you see that, you'll see these lips here, and you'll notice that this lip and this lip is actually much less than this one over here. All right. When we actually have a bath sitting on top, this is a painful detail. More often than not, you hop in the bath and it'll make funny little noises, and that's simply to do with the fact that the weight of the bath. Now, underneath the bath is generally used to be cement. Nowadays, they use Hilti foam, and it's a glue, and it holds the bath pretty well solid. So again, same detail: aqua check, flexible sealant. Um, Now, if we just had a tile up here, every time the kids jump in the bath, uh, water goes everywhere, and then it goes straight into this support framing. Okay, detail for a basin. Now, this is one that catches out, and so in particular, that housing trust home I spoke about earlier, the first question that people need to ask is, say, where did the water come from? And two places, both taps. Okay, they had a rose over the top of here, but it was not sealed through here. And so this is critical that this is actually sealed. And in this case, you could see the stains all the way down the stud work that my friend Stuart had to fix that job up. All right, same detail here. You've got a flexible sealant, and again, it's just key areas. Now, construction details, general areas. Looks like I've got another email. Um, Perimeter in situ membrane, you can see it there, angle flashing. It almost like they're redoing that, but that is the area that I wanted to actually show you. If you were doing a home or a nursing home, you'll notice that all of the floors actually have a cove like that, okay, because of the amount of washing and gear like that. And it's also, it just keeps stuff away from there. Um, I made the comment in class that I find it hard to believe that they would use something like a piece of timber there, because if you did have a leak, this would actually rot out fairly quickly. Okay, but it does say coving for a continuous support for the vinyl. Now, there's no doubt that the vinyl is waterproof, and so that in itself is quite important. Now, the rest of the stuff down here, I'll leave for you to have a look at regards to cornice. This is the cove that we are using um, in our home, and so it's a 90 mil cove, and this is how it actually sits on a wall. All right, that's I want to actually go back to the course, and so that is a key area through there. So please um, actually download this and have a look at the waterproofing, because when I did the lockup video for plasterboard, I did not spend a whole heap of time on the waterproofing, so I thought that that would be a better way to do that. Now, there's two other resources that you have here, and the first one is a resource for insulation, and I'm just, no, it's not that. So let's open that up. okay, and it takes you straight to Bradford. How fantastic is this that we can just click a link and it'll take you straight through why insulate, home insulation, commercial, technical service, downloads. Okay, so there's a heap of stuff that you can download, and there's all the information around some of these claims. Okay, so insulation can reduce energy use for heating and cooling by up to 20%. So this morning, when I got up, we'd had a massive amount of rain, had a fire last night, have a thermometer um, on one wall, and every morning I have a look at it. This morning it was 12 degrees outside, according to my computer, and in the actual um, in the actual thermometer, 18 degrees. So 6 degrees warmer inside than outside. And that's because our entire home, which is now nearly 40-year-old, was every wall was actually filled with rock wool. And it's got isolation over the top of the roof, and it's got insulation underneath the timber subfloor. And so therefore we lose very little heat out of the home. The converse is true. If you haven't had a fire going or anything like that, it can become like a fridge if we don't actually chuck some heating around. So we have the all the different R ratings that you can use, and so you can actually have a look at that. And I think that's well worth looking at. Now, there is also insulation requirements by this group here, and insulation handbook. ICANS, the right insulation matters. So this is an independent publication of the Insulation Council of Australia and New Zealand. Now it's a 2010 publication, but it actually covers every single page, right? Flat ceiling, metal roof with no ceiling, plasterboard ceiling, concealed rafters, exposed rafters, and you can actually go through and there's all the reasoning. So, for example, this fellow here is what I put underneath our floor, and the difference was just absolutely gobsmacking amazing. In summer, uh, we used to have a evaporative air conditioner going by about 9 o'clock in the morning. And the moment we put this reflective board, which is polystyrene with 2 layers of actual isolation on there, um, we don't put the air conditioner on till 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Excuse me. Glossary of terms, Australia's climate map, and you can see we're zone 6 in Adelaide, and then you can have a look at the rest of the country. Zone 1, super duper up here. We were up here last year for 3 months and across there, and man, oh man, was that hot. All right, the use, what classes for buildings in reference to these, and you can see, for example, pitched tiled roof with a flat ceiling, okay, where we should actually be using some isolation and we should be using some insulation and the recommended size. Now that's gold, all right. If you can get that, and this is another valuable resource that you can put into your digital library. Flat metal roof without ceilings, ceiling hangers, underneath a concrete slab. There are just a myriad, clay masonry brick veneer. Masonry veneer, isn't that interesting, right? So we've got all of that information for you. Now, as builders, you need to be up to date with what is actually running around, and you could no doubt do a search and see if there's an update on this publication. But I can see straight away some of the key areas that would be really handy in regards to using this document. All right, so let's go back here. All right, so that's all I have in regards to waterproofing. What I can tell you is that it is one of the most frustrating areas in a builder's life, and we came up with different situations to make. We used to actually waterproof with a product called Sally's, which is a polymer sealant, and we would actually put that underneath the windows. And once you set those windows, especially ones facing the sea, no water would get through whatsoever. So Sally's blockade, and the other thing that we found out quite accidentally down the track, it clears off with terps. So you get some mineral terps. You can actually brush it into a corner, and you've got a perfect seal. All right, and so we used that for years, and used to carry around, like a box of those, because any area that was potentially going to leak, that is what you need to use. Silicon is good in some applications, in others, especially if it's painting, a paint finish, you don't want to put silicon on there. All right, because the paint won't adhere. But with Sally's blockade, you could actually brush that into a corner, paint it, and then basically very few water leaks. So I'm happy to actually recommend that product, and I no doubt there's more and more products available all the time. Okay, thank you very much, guys. Just a little bit of a tool talk about waterproofing. Thank you.